Hello and welcome to this lecture series on personal finance. My name is Dr. Oliver Gottschall and I am a lecturer for business strategy and international business at Chulalongkorn University here in Bangkok. In this short introduction session, we are going to do 5 things. First, I'm going to talk about what the objective of this course is and what this is all about. Then I'm going to elaborate a little bit on why I think that you, and in fact everyone, should invest in building financial literacy and taking care of their personal finances, before sharing a little bit why I do this, what my motivation is for teaching this class and for doing this lecture series. Then we're going to talk a bit about whether personal finance is art or science or what it actually is. And in the end, I'm going to lay out for you what the course structure is and what you can expect by watching this lecture series. So let me start by talking a bit about what the objectives of this course are. Basically, I have 3 objectives for teaching this class. The first objective is to help you develop your financial literacy. And financial literacy I define as the basic understanding of how to manage your personal finances. The second objective is to introduce the most important asset classes and what these asset classes can do for you as part of your investment strategy, and also introduce some basic investment tools. The third objective is to equip you with some fundamental frameworks and guidelines that help you reach your financial freedom. And all of that I'm planning to do in a structured, systematic, and practical way, which is also my personal approach to personal finance. So what I'm going to share with you here and teach here are things that I also use for my own personal finances and in my day-to-day life. I also want to emphasize what this class is not about, and this is very important for me. First of all, this is definitely not a make you rich quick guide. You will find some videos out there that claim that you can get rich very quickly and in a very sure way. No serious and credible investment approach can provide such a promise. This is very important. The second important aspect is that this is not investment advice. I am not an investment advisor. I'm not specifically trained for this. There are people out there that can do this much better than me. So this is definitely not investment advice. Why? Because I don't know your personal financial situation. I don't know your risk appetite. I don't know what your investment horizon is. All of these aspects are different for each individual, and therefore they require an individual approach to financial management. And that is best done by a personal financial advisor or by your banker or someone who knows you well. So therefore, everything that is shared in this lecture series is not investment advice. Everything you do as a consequence of it is at your personal risk also. And finally, this is linked to the first point also. This is not a guarantee for financial success. I'm going to share things with you that worked for me, but it might not work for you, and there's no guarantee for success in investment. Every investment involves risk, and no one can predict what the exact outcome will be. So there's no 100% guarantee. Okay, so now that we got this out of the way, why should you care? Why should you watch this lecture series? What is in it for you? I listed out a few points here where I think my students might benefit from listening to this lecture series. And maybe some of these apply to you as well. Maybe you want to achieve some very specific financial goals. Maybe you want to make a trip around the world, or you're saving for building a house or starting a family. Maybe you have some very specific objectives coming up, and some of the tools and frameworks might help you achieve those goals. Or you want to build wealth and financial success over the long term. Maybe you are in debt and want to get out of the debt trap and want to find ways to reduce your debt burden. Or you have a very specific investment decision coming up and you want to avoid making mistakes. Or linked to that, avoid being taken advantage of by some financial advisors. or you want to plan for your retirement in the very long term, or just reach financial independence and not having to worry about money so much anymore. There are many reasons that I could think of. There are many good reasons why anyone should build their financial literacy. And maybe we can address some of these points as part of this lecture series. Next, let me share with you what my personal motivation is for teaching this course. In my day job, I'm a division head for a big food company here in Thailand. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a trained financial advisor. I'm not a banker. And also in my teaching job, I'm teaching business strategy and international business. So also not teaching any financial management or any finance courses directly. So why am I doing this? The first reason is very personal to me, and those are my kids. My kids are going into their teens, and they start to take care of their personal finances in terms of like their pocket money and managing like some small amounts that they have to spend. And I think that knowing about personal finance is very, very important also for life. Unfortunately, my kids don't like to listen to my lectures in person. And I thought by recording videos and making this information available to them, maybe they can go back later and look at it when the time comes and when they are ready to listen to this stuff and maybe are not too bored by their dad. The second reason are my students. I teach at university for 17 years by now, and I noticed that my students are very, very good at corporate finance, even some aspects of financial engineering they know very well, but I noticed that there are gaps in personal finance and managing their personal finances. This is from the discussions that we have in class and from the questions that are being asked. So unfortunately, there is no formal class at our university, at least that I'm aware of, that teaches personal finance. So I thought I record these sessions and maybe my students in my classes can benefit from that as well. And the third reason is my country. You might not see it from my face, but I'm actually a Thai citizen. I live in Thailand for over 20 years by now. And let me elaborate on this a little bit with a little graphic that you can see here. Thailand has a huge problem that has evolved over the last 15 years or so. So after the financial crisis and going into the 2010 years, there has been a trend of increasing household debt to an alarming level. In 2010, the level of household debt was at 59% of GDP. But over the years, it had crept up. And you see with COVID, it made another jump in 2020. So household debt levels are now at nearly 90% of GDP. And on the right side of this graph, you see some comparisons here of other countries in the region, including China, where household debt stands at 63%, India only 17%, Indonesia only 10%, Philippines 11%. So all these countries are quite similar to Thailand, but have significantly lower household debt levels. And that also means that many people have a very high debt service level. So meaning they have to pay 50% or maybe even more of their monthly income just to service their debt. And that is very concerning. It severely harms the Thai economy. And I hope that with this video series, maybe some people watch it and can apply the tools, and it can help them improve their financial situation and maybe even get out of the debt burden that they have. So when I prepared for this class, I asked myself, what is personal finance actually? What is the best way to teach this? Is personal finance art or is it science? Now, if personal finance is art, then it would probably require some talent or some creative approach that would lead us to be successful. And only talented people could get successful in personal finance. If it is science, on the other hand, then that would mean that we would need to find a formula, like some kind of magic formula for investing, for example. And if you follow that formula, then we would guarantee have financial success. Now, when I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that personal finance is maybe a little bit of both, but more than anything, I believe that personal finance is a craft that can be learned. And I like to compare it to building a shelf from IKEA, from the Swedish furniture company, where you get a manual and you go step by step. And when you do things right, it should lead you to a good result. And that's my very strong belief, that personal finance is a craft, that if we follow a systematic approach, we can at least avoid failure. If not a phenomenal success, then at least we can avoid failure, but we should be able to get to some fundamentally good or solid results if we follow the approach. And that's basically how I designed this course. So let me lay out for you what you can expect in this lecture series. I thought I'd divide this course into two parts. The first part, about 15 sessions, will lay the foundations of personal finance. So we will cover the basics, we will talk about goal setting and financial planning, we will talk about managing debt, we will cover saving and investing, including some basic information about the most relevant asset classes, and then also put personal finance in action. How to do wealth accumulation and retirement planning. Those are the foundations. In the second part, we will become much more practical. We will talk about investment strategies, investment philosophies, specifically talking about the asset classes of bonds, ETFs, stocks, and commodities, and talk about different approaches to portfolio management. So this is in a high level the two parts of this course. Now, talking about part one, the foundations part specifically. It looks something like this. So we start in this first lecture with the introduction. Then in the second part, we talk about goal setting. This third session will be about building your personal financial baseline or assessing your current financial situation. And then talking about budgeting, how to build a budget. Then I will share my approach of how I set up my personal financial system and some basic information about time value of money and compounding and the positive effects of that, and risk and return, as well as timing and costs of investment. In the next step, we are going to talk about debt, specifically debt planning and debt reduction. And then there will be a big session of 6 sessions about saving and investing. So that includes savings and managing cash. Then in session number 9, we talk about bond investing. Session number 10 will be about investment funds and ETFs. In session number 11, we talk about stock market investing specifically. And then we will cover some commodities, gold and silver, and then some other asset classes like options, bitcoins, maybe some real goods like whiskey and some other things. And then in the last section of this part 1, we will talk about wealth accumulation, retirement planning, how to select or how to deal with financial advisors, and we'll end the last part with investment mentality and a bit about psychology of money, because very important for investment success is how you think about your finances and how you react, for example, to crisis situations or to some special situations. And this we will cover in the last session. Finally, a little disclaimer, and you will see this disclaimer in the other lectures in this series as well. Please take note that this is not investment advice. I'm not a trained investment advisor. investment advice always requires an individual approach. Investment comes with risk, and you have to make your own financial decisions. You know your situation best. I don't know your personal situation, and therefore I cannot give you any advice. Any conclusions or actions that you derive from watching this lecture series are at your own risk and at your own responsibility. And this is basically what this disclaimer says here. This is for educational or for informational, maybe for entertainment purpose, not for investment advice, definitely. And that brings us to the end of this first introduction session. I am super excited about this lecture series, and I hope this is interesting for you as well. And maybe I see you again in the next session when we talk about goal setting and financial planning. Thank you for watching.